the video off for at least while I'm presenting. Maybe if you need to see my smiling face, I'll turn it on later, but I am going to keep the video off for now, just to conserve some bandwidth here. And now we're getting to the talking and chewing gum at the same time thing that I struggle with. Oh, before that, I'm going to make John Ewing a co-host. I'm going to let Abigail O'Neill in. Okay, Dr. Ewing, you are now a co-host, and we will get right to it. Am I recording?
Yes.
I believe I am. Yes. Okay. So welcome, everybody. It is really good to see you all, either virtually. Well, you're all virtual to me. But today I just wanted to spend some time going over something that's been on Jon Seaman's mind for quite a number of years. Never had the platform or opportunity to do anything about it. Full disclosure, been really excited to do this session for a couple weeks now, and with conference planning and case planning and everything else, didn't quite come out to be what I had hoped it would, but it's something that I'm giving to you to do with what you would like, and hopefully maybe generate some ideas as to some new things that you can cover with students in your classes, at least some of your classes, in terms of snow, which is the often forgotten side to landscaping, hardscaping, and a whole host of other different businesses. And we're going to discuss briefly some of the background to this, why it's important. But ultimately, what I want to give you is the resources that I created, and you're free to do with them what you wish. Absolutely nothing. Take them at face value and run with them, or just steal pieces or ideas or pictures or whatever it is out of it to at least address this in some way, shape, or form with students. So why do we in agriculture, or why should we potentially care about snow removal? Well, as I said, it's the often forgotten component to landscape, hardscape businesses, because mind you, that work only takes place during a very specific window of season, depending on where you live, typically between the month of March and late October, early November is really the only time that, and some geographical areas is even less of a window to get actual projects done, at least in the Northeast here, especially if you do strictly landscape, because all the plants are dead. You're not doing much in landscape December, January, February. So those 3 months can be either shut down, lay off, non-profitable months out of the year for a business, or you can try to capitalize on the one thing that does occur during that period of time, other than plants growing and hardscapes being installed, and that's more often than not, snow is falling. And it's not uncommon for snow removal service to comprise 30 to 40%. And in some cases, this can be even approaching closer to 50% of a company's annual revenues. That's huge. That's a component that is keeping businesses afloat during the off months, keeping folks employed, keeping paychecks coming. And it's not often discussed or trained for. It's just sort of this thing that some companies do, and they get their employees switched over from mowing grass and pruning bushes and installing landscapes and hardscapes to removing snow. However, I'm going to jump bullet points. It's not quite as simple, and it's not quite as mundane as it might appear at face value. And you're not going to find any of this, unfortunately, in any of the task lists. If you look at the horticultural management task list, or any of the ag production, ag general, this unfortunately isn't going to be anything that helps you knock off some tasks on that list or competencies on that list. But if you've got a student that's looking to get into either of these fields, especially in the Northeastern United States and in the Midwest, this is something that they're going to encounter most likely. And additionally, even more importantly, if you have a student that would like to start up their own business, either as an SAE project or they've just got plans after high school, snow removal is a non-ignorable component to that industry. However, there's little to no preparation to help a student prepare themselves in this space. So again, we're going to cover some topics here. I'm going to share with you some resources that I've thrown together just from experience. They're not as realistic as I'd hoped they would be, but they're still pretty realistic to give you some tools in your arsenal to cover this with your students. So this might seem like a well, duh, John, but when you really, it's a lot more, especially when you get into commercial property snow removal. It's a lot more than just plowing snow. Yeah, that's the meat and potatoes of the activity involved. But as far as making it profitable and being sure that you're not losing money by offering a service, you really got to dig into it a lot deeper than just pushing snow around on a parking lot. So one of the first things to consider, obviously, is the size of the space to be serviced. Residential driveways, they can be done by one guy, one girl, one truck, 1 8-foot plow, and charge $40 a pop. You're in, you're done in 5 minutes, okay? However, residential snow removal, driveways, sidewalks, etc., can be a pretty good moneymaker, and volume is the name of that game, right? You want to get in, you want to get done in 5 minutes or less. You're walking out of there with $30 a pop, $30, $40 a pop. But now I want to talk a little bit more towards the commercial end of things. Your Walmarts, your Sheetses, your Burger Kings, your McDonald's, your fast food chains. You're talking some serious bucks in snow removal service for these corporately run, corporately managed businesses. And most often than not, when you're dealing with one of those establishments, you're not going to the manager of the McDonald's to work all this out. You're dealing with a property management corporation, and the McDonald's franchise or the Wendy's franchise or whomever, whatever business you're dealing with there, hires a company to solicit, bid out, and contract with various service companies to take care of all these different things that need to occur. Lawn mowing, grass mowing, landscaping throughout the warmer months, snow and ice removal and service during the winter months. And these companies like to play pretty hard with these contracts, and they like to be competitive because they want to get a service that is going to get what they need: reliable, on time, and a good job done. So it's not uncommon, and I can tell you this from experience, it's not uncommon for a contract with a Burger King to be $15,000, $20,000 flat for the winter. I can tell you from experience, a Wise grocery store contract was $30,000 for 2 years, guaranteed, whether it snowed one flake either of those 2 years or whether we got a blizzard every other week. That's a serious chunk of change. That's $60,000 of revenue for you, for your company, guaranteed over 2 years. And obviously, the more it snows and the more services need to be rendered, the less profit you're going to make off of that $60,000 guaranteed. So we're talking big bucks, and Walmarts go into the $80,000 to $100,000 for snow removal contracts in the winter. Huge industry. Obviously, we're talking bigger size. One of the stipulations and one of the things that when you go after a large commercial contract like that is you need to lay out for the property management company how many vehicles, what kind of snow equipment do you have at your disposal? And obviously, if it's a 20-year-old owner operator landscape business, Jim Smith Landscaping, just graduated high school. He's got his Dodge Ram 2500 and an 8-foot Western plow. and a little tailgate salt spreader, they're probably going to disqualify you from the running. However, if you're a medium to larger sized operation, you have a couple vehicles, that's one of the checkoffs in the list of things they look at. And then it comes down basically to bids sometimes. And we're going to talk about the factors that go into pricing. Well, and ultimately what you're looking at is how much does it cost me to provide this service versus how much I'm going to charge or how much the contract is going to pay me. The difference, obviously, being the profit for the business. So other things to consider, you can have trucks, you can have salt spreaders, you can have great plows, but if you don't have reliable operators for any of the above, none of that matters. So you got to have the employees, not somebody that's going to go run off and do some other occupation over the winter or over the winter off-season months and tell you, oh, there's a storm coming, I can't plow for you. You have to have butts in the seats to operate the trucks or nothing is happening. And again, ultimately what we're looking at is the costs here. It's more than just how much you're paying somebody to operate these vehicles. It's more than just the cost of the trucks or the plows or the salt spreaders or the salt itself. It's a whole lot of other different things to get factored in. And then the last point, which you're going to hear me come back to time and time again, and you're going to see in the learning activities I've come up with, is marking out boundaries and hazards on properties. It seems, again, very simple, very well, duh. But in all reality, when you get a commercial property that has curbs, that has expensive vegetation, that has other utility structures that need to be protected, it really comes down to a lot of dollars. And it comes down to a lot of dollars in something as simple and as stupid as the stakes that you use to mark out these boundaries and these potential hazards. We'll talk more about that here in a second. How about right now? So one of the things for a commercial property, and if you go to, Walmart, various corporate establishments over the winter, or actually the time of year that this really starts to kick off is actually right about now, straight through September, October. Burger Kings, Walmarts, Wise grocery stores, Giant food stores. Right now is when they're determining who will provide our snow removal service this coming winter. Oftentimes there's a lot of back and forth with contracting, but ultimately the goal by September, October is to have those contracts pinned down, and this is the company doing our snow removal. These are the terms of our agreement and hiring them to do so. Because in all reality, in central Pennsylvania and northern tier of Pennsylvania, come middle to late October, there could be a snow event. You need to have a service lined up to handle that. And another reason this is such big business is if you think about a big commercial parking lot, a Walmart, a Burger King, where you've got a lot of customers coming in, foot traffic, the establishment, the grocery store, the fast food restaurant, the whomever, has a lot of liability if their surfaces are not being plowed and treated and somebody slips and falls due to a lack of treatment. That's why lining this stuff up and not being caught unprepared is so important. So in a lot of these commercial parking areas, you're going to see these concrete islands all over the place. And these are meant to control and divert the flow of vehicular traffic throughout the parking lot, designed by engineers and that know a lot more than at least I do. And most of these are all constructed with concrete curbing. And you might say, well, that's stupid. You just don't hit the curbing. Here's an opportunity for some audience participation. Why is it important to know and mark out where concrete curbing is in the parking lot for snow removal?
Damage to equipment.
What's that?
Damage to equipment.
Well, yeah, but Dave, just don't hit the curb.
Yeah, Dave. I was gonna say the same thing. Good job. Hey, Dave, let's not answer anymore today, okay? Yeah, you kind of used your one. Yeah. He's upset, John. I think you need to make this right. Come
Well,
on, man.
Dave, I'll bring you a gift to make it up to you when I come up tomorrow, okay? Dave, would you like to expand upon that? Anybody else have any thoughts? It's simple. Be a good driver. Just don't hit the curb.
You can't see it under the snow.
Thank you, Mark Anderson. You can't see it when there's 4+ inches of snow or drifting snow. Or
Dave
you
didn't
just
know that. Dave's actually writing down a note right now. Yeah. Yep. He grew up in Miami, you know.
Right. I mean, think about this. You're plowing even a 2-inch snowfall. The plow debris that you could plow over and bury a curb and not know it's there. So you have to have a marker there to know where these things are at when they get buried by snow for one reason or another. So oftentimes when you go to a grocery store, again, around October, November-ish, you'll start to see these things popping up all over the islands. If you didn't know, now you know. That's what they're for. And other things to consider, which I thought, in full disclosure, between 11 o'clock last night and actually during other sessions and business meetings this morning, this may or may not have been getting finalized. I thought the next picture was going to be of concrete curbing damage, which can be very, very, very expensive to repair. And if you damage it, you're either fixing it yourself, which incurs a cost, or you're paying another company, which is even more expensive to fix it. So this is not a great picture, but if you can see up here in the upper right-hand corner, the parking lot. Well, if I'm coming along with a snow plow and this is sticking up a little bit further than it maybe should be, and I'm pushing a big pile of snow off the parking lot into this manhole cover, show of hands, and I know I can't see everybody. Has anybody ever hit a manhole cover going really fast with a snow plow? Yeah.
I saw 2 hands, I think.
Your internal components can get very rearranged very quickly. It is not fun for the operator, nor is it fun for the plow, which can get cracked or even bent. Nor is it fun.
Earlier, John, we're all feeling bad for Dave, man.
But and then think about this. If you damage this structure, not only do you possibly have damage to your plow, not only do you possibly have damage to your vehicle, not only did the operator just get his brain rattled around pretty hard, but now you might have to pay to replace this manhole cover structure. Not cheap, folks, not cheap. For concrete curbing repair, even a small section, you could be looking at $300 to $500, right? You're in this business to make money. You're spending a lot of time, a lot of sleepless nights plowing snow to make money, to make profit. You don't want to be giving up money in damage to either structure or vehicles or anything else. And okay, there it is. I just said it, to save money. This obviously was hit by something at some point. Believe it or not, Google Images does not carry a whole lot of pictures about concrete curb damage. I was quite astounded and shocked and disappointed.
Field trip.
But this is the best I could find. Believe me, when I've been out looking at commercial properties, going back, which you don't know how to go back. Hey, there you go, technology. I've gone out and seen, can you guys see my cursor moving around?
Yes.
Okay. I've seen this curbing here just busted up to pieces. You better believe I'm taking pictures, I'm documenting, because I want to prove in every way, shape, or form this was like this before I ever did anything. Now, you might say this is a lot of hoopla over nothing, John. It factors in. Trust me, just trust me. There's the concrete damage. Don't want to do it, folks. So the reason that I'm harping on this marking thing is this is often a forgotten component. Yeah, when you're getting contracts for $30,000 for the year, a couple bucks in steaks isn't all that much, but you got to keep in mind, these companies don't just normally go after one property. They could have numerous properties. And if each property requires 75 to 150 marker stakes, that's a significant chunk of change that can't be ignored, especially if it's not a flat fee contract and you're only going to get paid on a per storm basis. And you'll see in the learning activities, I've got some examples of these markers. Cheapest are the 1x1 inch wooden stakes. They're typically about $1 a piece. All right. We'll talk more about those in a second. But when you need 200 to 300 of these, especially if you're spending $2 per unit, that's potentially $400 worth of materials that need to get purchased in order for you to provide this service adequately. All stuff that people just don't think about. Okay, other factors that affect the cost to you, which in turn affects the pricing that you're either going to charge for the service or factor in when either accepting, declining, or renegotiating a contract for more money. Fuel is a huge one. You know, depending on the storm, where you're going for 20 hours straight, you're burning through multiple tanks of fuel per vehicle throughout the duration of that event. Fuel prices are constantly changing. 1 minute they're $2.80 something cents. Now they're $3.20. You know, you're looking at hundreds of dollars in fuel, depending on the number of vehicles and the amount of equipment that you're powering in order to do this stuff. Got to factor in the fuel. Labor, again, you need butts and seats to operate the loaders, the tractors, the skid steers, the trucks, the plows. And it's not uncommon. I can't speak for all of the rest of the state, but it's not uncommon in the state college area for companies to be paying $20 an hour to employees for snow removal. That's flat. Imagine now if you get an employee banking over a 40-hour work week, depending on what else is going on, depending how snowy the season is, you have a lot of snow events. There could be time and a half factored into that too. So labor is a huge cost. Obviously, the vehicles and the equipment is the largest expense. However, that all gets factored into overhead costs, which we'll talk about when we go through some examples. You got to be having liability and workers' comp insurance on all of the folks you've got doing this stuff, vehicle insurance, licensing, office administrative costs, right? It takes somebody sitting at a computer, responding to emails, setting up these contracts, they're collecting a paycheck. And then things like shovels and tire chains and just other trivial stuff that per unit doesn't cost a lot of money, right? You go to Lowe's, get a decent snow shovel for 12, 15 bucks a pop. But when you need to buy 10 of them to outfit your employees to do what they need to do, again, these costs all add up and need to be accounted for. And then, of course, the whole reason you're in this game is for profit. And what you should be shooting for, believe it or not, is a 40 to 50% profit margin, pretty much on everything, but definitely for your snow removal services, because it ultimately comes down to you need to be making some decent bucks, or all of the wear and tear on vehicles, personnel, et cetera, almost doesn't become worth it. And you're pretty much just spending a lot of time, energy, and expense for nothing. So you want it to be profitable. Any questions on anything so far? And if not, I'm going to get into the learning activities that I came up with. Okay.
They're giving me, okay. Well,
We're going to take a few seconds for station identification as I switch over here. So before I get into, now if I can find Zoom again, I'm going to just share this quick. So I've created a Google folder that has everything in this that I'm about to show you. This will be in the conference folder as soon as I'm able to put stuff in the conference folder. So before I show you the actual learning activities, I just want to show you this folder up here. It contains a number of different images that go along with the learning activities. I did stick one of each of these in that folder. But it's going to be helpful to you and your students if you so choose to use this, to have these images to refer to, right? And I used the measuring feature in SketchUp to give actual square footage for like this area and for this area and this drive area. You can just sort of fudge and throw an extra 1,000, 2,000 square feet into the totals here. But there's a number of different things that the questions focus your students to address in here. And you'll see this in a second when I get to the learning activities. But while we're on this one, because it's a good example, I just want to draw your attention to another thing to consider is where are you going to put the snow, right, on these properties? There's a lot, and I mean a lot of pre-planning when it comes to doing commercial properties, right? Everywhere there's vegetation. If you kill this vegetation, guess what? Come spring, you and your company are going to be paying to replace that vegetation. So you can't just take your snow plows and start piling it on these lovely conical shaped bushes here. You can't just plow it into this hedgerow here. You have to be thinking, where are we going to go with this snow, which is going to affect the pattern that you plow in, which is also going to affect the length of time it's going to take to clear the surface. So looking at this, obviously anywhere over here is off limits, anywhere over here is off limits. So pretty much you're going to have to focus and concentrate all the snow over here to this area and over here to this area. And this was filled in. I deleted a bunch of these to purposely create these very easy to spot areas where you can pile your snow. So basically, as an operator, you got to think, I'm going to be coming in the drive. I'm going to be pushing all this down into there, and I'm going to turn around and I'm going to be pushing all this snow down into there. Pretty cut and dry, not a lot of other options. This is not in the learning activities. However, you could certainly make your students think about this and factor it in. There's sidewalk all over around here that also is going to need to be cleared again for pedestrian liability purposes. One last note on this example, as you'll see when we get to the learning activities, this is not my design. I'm going to put that right up front. I did not create any of these. I just took them and altered them. This little manhole cover that sticks up a good bit was not there. I purposely moved these bushes back to create that spot right there and put that manhole cover because it's something of importance. Because I can tell you, typically younger, typically gentlemen, plowing snow, getting all rambunctious, middle of the night, wanting to get done, wanting to go like a bull in a china shop, especially if this little island here is not marked out. They might even know that it's grass. They just don't care. And they might be inclined to shave off some backups and turnarounds and just push some snow straight across that grassy island and make a straight shot down to the other end. If that thing's there, they will know it's there right quick. And again, hoping that equipment or the manhole structure itself is not damaged in the process. So you'll see this, and when we get into the different examples here in a second, I put that there very strategically, very purposely to see if students are able to catch that. Okay. Now, if I can just find my way back. Okay. So in the And I'll stop. Oh. I'm very, very sorry. I intended to give this to you all at the very start of the session. There's the link to that folder if you'd like to open up and look around. Now, what was I doing? Yeah, so in there, you're going to see the learning scenarios, student version, as well as teacher version. They're in there as editable. I mean, they're Word or Google Docs. You can download them and edit them however you want. I don't care. Stamp your name all over it. I do not care. Take it, scrap it, steal an idea, revise it, whatever you want to do. They are all there for you to take and use as you so desire. So in here, I got a little blurb. Again, you might want to leave that in or take it out for the students, whatever you want to do. In here, I go through the same sort of things, but in a lot greater detail and with some examples as far as the factors that need to be considered when pricing out and determining how much because ultimately what we're doing here, folks, is we need to first figure out how much it's going to cost for somebody to provide this service so we can figure out how to make money off of that. Obviously, the first thing that I noted on the slide was figuring out the size. Snow removal rates are typically in acres per hour. It is not uncommon for a typical unit to be able to, when I say a unit, I mean a pickup truck with an 8-foot plow and an operator driving it, to be able to clear anywhere from 2 to 3 acres of snow or space an hour. So if we sort of meet in the middle there and just use 2.5 acres per hour as the average for these, that's what we'll do. So first you got to determine the square footage I have in there, break the space into regular shapes, squares, rectangles, triangles, use the formula for each, length times width for rectangles and squares, half base times height or length times height, because you don't really have a height. For triangular areas, determine square footage, take your square footage, use 43,560 to convert it into acres. So for the example we have here is a 60,000 square foot area. Converting that into acres, it's just a hair under an acre and a half, 1.4 acres. Another example, 37, and I did this purposely so that your students have a model to go off of on seeing the conversion happen when it's going to be above a full acre as an answer, and also when it's going to be a decimal or a fraction of an acre. After that, we can apply our removal rate, which I average 2.5 acres per hour. I've got an example down here using our 1.4 acre area at a rate of 2.5 acres per hour. That should theoretically be able to be cleared in just a little bit under a half, or a little bit over a half of an hour, right? About approximately 30 minutes, which is pretty spot on. You know, I can tell you again from experience, an acre of parking lot, you should, I mean, unless there's a lot of stuff to plow around and whatever, you should be able to clear that in about 30 minutes. That's not taking into consideration any sidewalk, shovel work, snow blower work, etc. That's strictly with a plow. So once you've determined how long it's going to take one person in one unit, one pickup truck, one person with a plow, now you factor in, well, how much is that person making per hour of work? I used $15 per hour. Again, 20 is actually a more realistic number, at least in central Pennsylvania. It might be higher, it might be lower in your specific area, but it's going to cost you as the business owner approximately $8.40. Again, using a little bit over 30 minutes, you're going to end up paying about $8.40 in wage for that one person driving that one truck to clear that spot one time. Obviously, if you have to go back, heavy snowfall going on for 10 plus hours, the person has to go back numerous times. You're going to need to multiply that by the number of times that person is clearing that lot. This is important both for flat fee contracts as well as per storm or per clearing contract or billing options. Obviously, the operator must keep a log. Hey, I went to the Dollar General 3 times on the snowstorm last Wednesday. That, you're going to come up with a per clear rate for that a per clearing price for that property. And obviously just multiply that price by the number of times it was cleared. And that's how much you're going to bill the customer for. If you're looking at it from a flat fee contract perspective, this is all stuff you need to take into consideration when you're determining whether the contract's good or not. And we'll talk about that in scenario 3 when we get there. So number 4, we're figuring out the approximate cost in fuel per clear. And again, this is going to be based on current fuel pricing at the time. If fuel is a little bit less than $3.15 a gallon, this amount's going to go down. If by heaven forbid the price keeps going up, which it may, and we're paying more than $3.15 a gallon, obviously this price is going to get, this is probably the most fluctuating variable in all of this is fuel costs. So just using, as you see these steps build and build and build upon each other, it takes, you can figure out the fuel consumption of a vehicle, multiply that by the amount of time the vehicle is going to be on a particular property and get an estimate. Okay, these are all estimates. It's not hard, fast numbers. It's an estimate of approximately how much fuel gets consumed to provide that service on a specific property. Overhead costs, okay? Again, this is a fluid number. It's not going to be the same for company A as it is for company B. Some of you might be looking at 25% operating or overhead cost and say, oh, that's really low, John. Some of you might be looking at it and say, oh, that seems really high. It's going to vary, right? And we could go into a whole other spiel on factoring and determining your overhead operating costs. But that's neither here nor there for as far as this is concerned. So if we take the amount that we're at so far and multiply it by 0.25 or 25%, we're going to add 25% operating costs into that. Our new running total is $18.38 to clear that 60,000 square foot space. Okay. Next, number 6, we want to factor in our profit. And I said you should be shooting for 40 to 50%. Well, for planning purposes, you need to plan that. It doesn't, this is the name of game in business. You don't just do stuff and throw a price around willy-nilly and hope you're in that 40 to 50% profit margin. You need to plan for that. So you take your cost and add 50% of it in there as profit. So we take our current total of 1838, multiply by 0.5, we get $9.20. Add that back in, and now our per clear price is $27.58 per clear. You can round these numbers up to 30 for all I care. This is all just planning and estimation purposes. The key here to drive home to students is you had to think about this stuff, right? This is reality. This is the business world. So we take our current price. If you're not offering salt treatment or ice melt treatment of any kind, you can be done there. However, I don't really know I do know a few businesses that said, yeah, we don't want our parking lot salted. We'll just take care of that by hand with our employees. But if you're going to salt the parking lot, that needs to be considered. And this is a huge chunk of change. You'll see what it does to our per clearing price. Again, all based on the square footage of the lot to be cleared, Typical salt prices, bulk salt, we're talking bulk salt delivered on a dump truck. You get into the individual 50-pound bags of salt, it's a nightmare, it's expensive, it's a pain in the rear end. If you can drive people to go, a student that's interested in this and they have a place to house a pile of bulk salt, it's absolutely the way to go. You also need the equipment to load it, et cetera. But roughly $50 a ton for bulk rock salt. If you apply the math here to our 1.4 acre scenario, applying at a rate of roughly a quarter ton per acre, we can get 0.35 tons of salt needed roughly for this application, and then apply it to our price. That 0.35 tons of salt equals $17.50. It needs to be factored into the per clearing cost, right? Which now almost doubles our total up to $26.25 per clear. So now that we have, adding that takes us to $53.83 per clear, which is roughly $60. If this is a residential area, homeowners like to be charged nice round numbers. Mrs. Jones, I'll clear your driveway for $60 a pop with salt, right? 30 without, perhaps. That's how you get to these numbers and ensure that it's an accurate and appropriate number. Was somebody going to say anything? Okay.
I don't think so. I'm just shifting around because I remembered I didn't share out the link. So I'm going to do that here in just a minute, John. Sorry about that.
You don't want to sit and listen to me drone for an hour and not get Act 48.
I didn't realize I had the links until about 5 minutes ago. I thought you were, I knew I had the ones from this morning, but anyhow, keep going. I'm great.
So the other things to consider here, which again, this is all just sort of play around, throw it in, is the stakes. Wooden stakes tend to be cheap. Buy them from a wholesaler, a bundle of $50 per stake. Paint the top fluorescent pink, fluorescent orange, so they're really easy to pick out against white snow. I will say they're very easily damaged. You can reclaim and reuse some from year to year, but they're cheap, but you can pretty much plan on replacing many of them the following year. Fiberglass rods, this is a Lowe's price from Lowe's, $2.25 a piece. So obviously it's going to double the costs of using these for a property. And then there's these, the good old red reflective or blue reflective stakes. They're the most expensive, and I highly discourage you from using them. They're expensive. They get easily blown over by wind. If you plow up against them, they get knocked over. They're made of plastic. They break. I would really suggest either the fiberglass or wooden stakes painted. And again, I bring this up because depending on which stakes you go with, if you need a total of 120, it's going to be either anywhere from $1 to $2.25 each. That's $120 to $270 in just stakes to stake out the property. Can't forget about that. And again, here are some better images of what we mean when we say stake out. You come and drag your plow across this nice lush green grass. The homeowner's going to want you to do something about it come spring. That's wasted time, wasted expense, potentially. Got to know where the grass line is. There's those concrete curbs, a typical pattern of marking out concrete curbs. One at the point, one at each bend, and then, one at corners. And I see a chat. Oh, that's Dr. Ewing. Again, some other points. It's really important to consider your contract. It needs to be stated very clearly. This is an important point to drive home to students. If you're going to contract, it's good to have a contract, whether it's with a residential homeowner or with a commercial property. It needs to be clearly spelled out in there what the expectations are. Am I coming as soon as the ground gets dusted white? Am I coming when there's 1 inch of snow on the ground? Am I coming when there's 2 inches of snow on the ground? Am I supposed to wait till the storm is completely done, regardless of whether it dumped an inch or 13 inches? Am I supposed to wait till the storm is completely done before I clear? That all needs to be spelled out and agreed upon in writing before winter or the plow ever touches the ground. Very important to drive home with your students. A lot of headaches and problems can result when that's not spelled out clearly. All of the scenarios we've talked about have been for one truck, one operator. Obviously, the more vehicles, the more units you use, the quicker it can be done. However, the expenses go up in mostly wage, as you'll see. And an example, what do I have here? The teacher version? Yeah. You'll see an example down the road. Sidewalks need to be done. Again, this takes a body. If it's going to be the owner or the operator getting out of the truck and shoveling, that's going to add to the time that he's being paid to be on that property. That needs to be taken into consideration. Is that operator going to have a helper ride along with them to do sidewalk clearings, shovel out doors, shovel out handicap accessibility ramps, etc.? That person needs to be, and the wage that they're being paid needs to be accounted for. So obviously these numbers fluctuate and go up and down depending on the number of people involved, but it all needs to be thought out and considered. And now the scenarios. So I did a level 1, level 2, level 3, because totally, I try to be as realistic of a human being as I can. I fully understand not all your students are going to give 2 hoots, 1 hoot, half a hoot about any of this. So level 1 is just kind of a real simple, all right, give it to Timmy, give it to Joey, give it to Mary.
David.
As a graded assignment, get it done and over with, and we'll never talk about snow with them ever again, right? Real simple. Here we're at that Dollar General lot. I would advise you to, provide those additional images using annotation tools, the paint option in computers. Listen to me talk technology. Have them actually mark out on here where they would put boundary stakes, right? Be putting one on each corner, one there. I'd be marking out this curve. I'd be absolutely marking out that little peninsula, and then absolutely a real clear circle of markers around that manhole cover. A couple coming in here along the grass line at the entrance. Actually have them show you to prove they're thinking, not just doing stuff, but they're thinking this out and deciding where to put it. So again, the square footages are on here. I've worked out, this is the teacher version that has the answers. Obviously, I care about you. Don't want you to have to think about this stuff all by yourself. There it is with work laid out for easy grading. And again, take 2 out of these 4 questions or 5 questions. Whatever you want to do with it, it's here for you to do. And then question number 5, really to direct their attention. What are the potential hidden hazards here? And obviously I put that manhole cover there on purpose. Other things could be these parking lot stops, etc. The dumpster down there, can't be piling snow in front of the dumpster. Garbage man gets very, very angry. Actually, the business owner, when the garbage truck pulls in, sees the pile of snow and just backs right out and says, forget it. So again, there's all the work laid out for level 1. Level 2 is a Burger King. Again, you have additional images to help paint a clearer picture of it, but the square footages of these main spaces are all there. A lot of the same repeat questions there with the work laid out. But question number 6, what makes this one a little bit more challenging? Well, this has a drive-through, right? And some of you might know it's sometimes tough to fit a vehicle through some of these drive-through lanes. It's even tougher to fit a snow plow and a long truck potentially with a snow plow on it through some. So all of this stuff needs to be taken into consideration. That's level 2. Level 3 is an Acme supermarket. I've given the dimensions of the whole area here to use as for calculating acres. A lot of these islands, right? So you're talking, and again, this 658 feet long, you're talking a lot of, and it's all curbed, right? If you can see on any of the other images, this is all curbed all the way around with concrete curbing. Needs to have markers all along pretty much every edge, every corner, every straight edge, etc., and all these islands. So you're talking a lot of money in just markers for this property. So this is the table that I wanted to draw your attention to. When you start adding units, right? This is based off of, and this is for, I would say this is for the student that is looking to start up their own landscape company, going to potentially be doing snow removal. May not be, maybe an extra credit assignment for students. This is for, and so to go back to another point, even if a student does end up plowing snow, let's be real, folks. Some of them are just going to be driving a plow truck. They're going to be reporting to somebody else. I cleared the Dollar General 4 times. I did the Burger King 3 times. They're not caring about any of this stuff, right? They're just going to be operating a plow truck. This scenario 3 is intended more so for the kid that wants to potentially start their own business or work in management for a larger company someday. Really hone in and sharpen their edge a little bit. So this one plow truck and operator, it calculates out to be about 2 hours and 2.5 hours to clear it with one truck. That's paying one person $15 an hour, and the fuel expense for one truck, and that's our per clear cost. When you add a second truck and second operator, it cuts the amount of time in half, because they can each be doing, hopefully, theoretically, half of a job, but the wage costs remain the same, because now, even though it's 2, it takes half the time for those 2 folks to be there doing the job. The fuel cost doubles though, which adds about $15 to the overall clearing cost. Let's say you want to throw 3 units onto that site. It's going to knock the clearing time down to less than an hour. The wage cost remains the same, but look at what it did to our fuel cost now. Adding that 3rd truck more than doubled the fuel that it was going to cost to have one truck out there. And that significantly the fuel, the more vehicles you add, is your biggest variable that changes, adding to the overall expense. So then I threw a hypothetical in here. You know, I did this for the Burger King scenario 2. Everything we've been talking about has been for one clear. This forces them to think, well, what if we have a storm that produces more, that causes more than one clear? How often, based on what the contract says, am I going to need to go back and do that property? This is making them calculate the stakes and making them calculate the cost of those stakes to get enough. Analyzing it overall for different hazards that are going to slow things down and complicate things. Grocery stores are a bugger, because you got cars coming in and out, people walking all throughout it. It can really slow you down. And then number 8 here is the grand ta-da of you're approached by a company to do a $5,000 flat fee contract, or you can just decline that and go do per clearing jobs. Scenario number 8 forces them to, and again, it says right here at the very beginning of the answer, there is no right or wrong answer to this, because it's going to be very case dependent. But ultimately, when you come down here and crunch the numbers that I've laid out for you, $5,000 is not enough, not anywhere near enough to have me commit to doing this, because pretty quickly, in 10 to 15 storms, you're really cutting down into your profit margin, leaving only about $1,000 of profit. That's not enough for me. Because you get a really bad winter, above average winter, that $1,000 could be gone in a heartbeat, and now you're losing money to maintain that contract. So my recommendation to the student that's working through this scenario is to decline the contract and renegotiate for a minimum of $7,000 to $8,000 to do that. And that's that. We are now officially 1 minute past due. Anybody have any thoughts, comments, or questions about any of that? That was a lot, I know. I hope it's of use to you. I hope somebody chooses to use it. But that's all I got. Any questions, comments?
Well, other than David, oh, go ahead, sorry.
I have a math teacher friend that I'm really close to, and he is teaching a new course next year on applied mathematics. And I think this is perfect. This is the kind of stuff he was asking me for some examples in agriculture, which I gave him some. But if you don't mind, I'm going to pass this along to him as well. I think this would fit perfectly in with his course. You even have those with the level 1, 2, and 3. You even have it differentiated.
Yep.
So
And Mark, I would make one request to you for that. Ask him to do like a diminishing return cost analysis and add it in there. That's something I'd love to see. Is, you know, well, what is the Goldilocks number of trucks to be using for a job? You know,
Right.
That'd be awesome.
Okay. Thank you.
Perfect.
Yep. Anything from the home team here? No? All right, couple thumbs ups and, you know, yeah, there you go. Thank you very much, John, and I'm sure we'll be in communication here